happened in the Canadian elections?
As Pope? I'd like to be Pope. That would be my number one choice.
We've got ones that can see. Welcome everybody to today's show. Of course, we know that they love to use humor as a way of deflecting the actual truth in plain sight. So when Donald Trump says that he's the one who should be the Pope, and he's talking about being the one world government leader, the one sitting on the throne of the one world government, and he is the one who is bringing in the one world government, as we see him carrying out all of the United Nations agendas, all of the World Economic Forum's agendas, from AI governance to the North American Union to moving over to digital currency. Eventually here we will see and hear about a digital ID when it comes to keeping illegals out of America, forcing Americans and convincing Americans that a digital ID is the best way to move forward, the safest way to move forward. And of course, there will never be mention of how that digital ID is part of and will tie into their total enslavement, total control grid that they are building out right now through Donald Trump's AI governance infrastructure. So when Donald Trump jokes about becoming the Pope, of course, people out there will laugh at it and say it's just his sense of humor, but there's so much truth in plain sight. And it goes further than Donald Trump just joking outside of the White House about how he would vote for himself, how he would be the best new Pope if he could pick an actual Pope. Then you have the White House themselves retweeting an actual post from the President of the United States, which depicts himself as the Pope. Now, you might remember when Pope Francis passed, I even had thumbnails that I used where Donald Trump was depicted as the Pope, because there's a lot of secret things that are going on right now that aren't so secretive that people aren't paying attention to, including in this image how Donald Trump is using one finger and pointing it up, right? Referencing a one world order, which is the New World Order. The New World Order is a one world government where all governments work together through artificial intelligence. They're united through AI as one. It is the Tower of Babel rebuilt, and there will be one leader sitting on that throne. And some people did notice how Donald Trump was using that one finger, that index finger, because that's the index finger that Muslims use. It's known as the Islamic State salute, where you'll see a lot of photos of Muslims holding up that one finger in the sky. And what does that one finger actually mean? Well, it's the oneness of God. The single raised index finger is said to signify the oneness of God in Islam. When Muslims in prayer proclaim that Allah is the only God and that Muhammad is his prophet, the gesture was traditionally used during sermons. So people noticed that and said, well, this is just Donald Trump making a mockery of the Muslim faith, making a mockery of Catholics as well when he's depicting himself as the Pope. So if he's mocking Muslims and he's mocking Catholics or Christians out there, who is he actually honoring by mocking those two? And what are we actually seeing here when we hear Donald Trump talk about how you're going to give up religion real soon, as I'll play for you in a minute, when he talks about a tax increase that's coming that would cause people to give up their religion? Well, he's talking about the coming of the Noahide laws. That finger gesture there, of course, was referring to the coming Noahide laws and how nations are going to bow down to a one world religion. Well, guess what? That one world religion is not Christianity. That one world religion is not Islam. That one world religion, which will be held under the Noahide laws, which Christians will be duped into thinking has something to do with the moral instructions that God gave to Noah and his descendants. But that's part of this deception that we're seeing with the uniting of Israel and Christianity. The state of Israel created in 1948 with Christianity. Christians referencing scripture and not interpreting it correctly when it comes to verses such as those who claim to be and are not and are of the synagogue of Satan. So I will get into more detail about the Noahide laws loosely in a few minutes, but I want to play for you this clip where Donald Trump is talking about a 68% increase in taxes. And he says, if this actually happens, people are going to give up their faith. They're going to give up their religion, which is very interesting because this was supposed to be the National Day of Prayer at the White House. You know, this devout Christian that Donald Trump is, this man who supposedly was chosen by God according to these deceived people that we live among, who blaspheme God every single day, that they tell us that he was anointed by God, as if they are speaking on behalf of God himself, which is really disgusting to see. And of course, these are the same people that believe that somehow a bullet miraculously missed his ear, and then they went for him again and somehow missed him, and they haven't gone for him ever since, right? Because divine intervention intervened. Of course, that was part of the mass mind control that they put on everyone after the assassination attempts, where they were using similar tactics to the Sinclair Broadcasting Group, where every single Christian station was talking about divine intervention. Then you hear all the Christians and all the MAGA people talking about how God truly chose Donald Trump. And then, of course, the 501c3 churches followed suit afterwards. So on National Prayer Day, here is your president, who is supposedly a devout Christian, talking about if there's an increase in taxes, it'll be a 68% increase, and most people out there will give up their faith because the tax increase is so bad that they won't even have time to pray anymore.
To be updated on the progress of the one big, beautiful bill. We love that bill. I won't like it if it doesn't pass, neither will you. If it doesn't pass, your taxes are going to go up 68%. So think of it. 68, and this is a religious ceremony to me, but that's part of the religion, because if your taxes go up 68%, you might give up your religion. You might have no choice. You'll be working too hard to try and make it.
So that's obviously utterly ridiculous. I mean, people should hear quotes like that and a lot of the other things, including when Donald Trump recites the serpent poem, the snake's poem, where he's referring to himself, talking about, you knew who I was before you let me in. But there he is, first of all, talking about a 68% increase in taxes, which should be a light bulb going off in all citizens' heads, that if there's an increase where people are paying 68% in taxes, then everybody should just stop paying their taxes, no matter what their political affiliation is. But of course, we know how trained people are into believing that this is something that's mandatory when there's not even laws in place about paying your taxes. But most of these people have opted in to the program by participating in the voting system. So they've given their right and consent to be governed. So when Trump is talking about it, he's really hinting at what the future is, because Donald Trump, as most media outlets have said, is the champion of Noahide law. That Donald Trump is the chosen president of Israel. During his almost 4 years in office last time, Donald Trump has been the greatest supporter of Noahide law in U.S. history. We also see the laws that Donald Trump has passed since he's been put back in power, which are all about banning Christianity. That's what most Christians don't understand. They see these laws being passed and they say, well, we support Israel. They're never going to come after us and try to ban the Bible. Consider the Bible a book of hate speech. Consider the Bible a book that's actually speaking against Israel. But then you read a lot of the verses in the Bible that speak against this specific group of people. Don't forget the ADL, when they have their laws, I covered this in a separate video on my other channel, they have all their rules about what's considered anti-you-know-what speech. And one of which on there is quoting the Bible, talking about how the Pharisees killed Jesus Christ, how this specific group of people of the synagogue of Satan killed Jesus Christ. And they will consider that hate speech, and you will be imprisoned for it. And in the future, when the Noahide laws are in place, you will be beheaded for it. So for anybody out there that doesn't understand, because a lot of Christians think that the Noahide laws should be enforced, because when you hear the Noahide laws, you say to yourself, oh, well, isn't that partially like, aren't I hearing the 10 Commandments here? Right? Isn't this what God gave down to Noah and his descendants anyway? Well, if you think about it and you look closer to some of the wording in the Noahide laws, you realize that it's not the same God that we worship that they are going to force you into worshiping. So the 7 Noahide laws are a set of moral instructions that, according to Jewish tradition, were given by God to Noah and his descendants, representing all of humanity. These laws are derived from the Torah and are explained in the Talmud. They are, one, prohibition of idolatry. This law requires the acknowledgement of one God and prohibits the worship of idols and other deities. Now we would all agree, oh, what's wrong with that? Well, what does it tell you if the one God isn't the God that we believe in? Because these people of the synagogue of Satan do not believe in our Father in heaven. They read the Bible backwards. Their father is Lucifer. So this law would require the acknowledgement of one God, but it's not our Father in heaven. It's Lucifer. Then it goes on to say, prohibition of blasphemy. The law would forbid cursing or speaking against God. Well, speaking against Lucifer. Remember, everything is inverted. Just like the celebrities tell you that they believe in God when they thank God. They're thanking their God, Lucifer. These members of secret societies, these Satanists, these elites, they say the word God because God to them is Lucifer, the God of this world. Okay? Prohibition of murder. The law prohibits the taking of a human life. So people would say, okay, well, I agree with that. That's like the Old Testament. No theft is allowed. The law forbids stealing and includes kidnapping, cheating, and other forms of dishonesty. Prohibition of sexual immorality. Prohibition of eating flesh from a living animal. The law forbids consuming meat from an animal that is still alive. Establishment of courts of law. The law requires the establishment of legal systems to enforce the other 6 laws. So think about that. We have Donald Trump, who has already signed these laws into place, and we see what? Well, we do see them trying to tear down the court system. Every day there's a story that plays to the left and the right that angers them about the way the court system is set up. Oh, now they're pro-abortion. Oh, now they're preventing they're the Roe v. Wade. And then one side wants the system torn down. Then the other side wants the system torn down. Then Christians are going to get duped into these laws, thinking to themselves, well, this is everything to do with the Bible. I mean, they can't blaspheme. There's no idolatry. God speaks against idolatry. Yet these people actually don't even realize that they're idol worshiping Donald Trump every single day by the way they behave and wearing his shirt. Even some of the stuff, the insane stuff we've seen with the golden statues of Trump that they bow down in front of. So when they talk about blasphemy and idolatry and some of these other things, they don't realize that the Bible is what's going to be forbidden, because even the ADL admits that it's a book that is anti-Semitic, anti-you-know-what. That's what we're headed towards with all of these things. So how is that for truth in plain sight? Where Donald Trump talks about being the Pope, right? Being that one world ruler. He's holding up the one finger for oneness, for the one world order, right? You hear the Muslims are very upset because of the oneness of God, because they believe that he's mocking them. And Catholics believe that they're being mocked by Donald Trump, and so do Christians. They're not thrilled about this specific post, but then, of course, you have the Christians who say, he's just joking around, right? Those are the ones under the deepest forms of hypnotism who just dismiss everything and think that everything is a silly joke and it's funny and he's using his humor, and stop taking things so seriously, right? Stop taking it so seriously, because that's how they start showing you the truth in real life. That's part of universal law. They have to reveal these things to you. They're telling you who they are. They're showing you who they are. They're telling you what they even believe in. And most of the people out there dismiss it as if it's humor or as if you're overreacting, right? And then you look at the stuff with the Noahide laws and you start thinking about Christians being deceived and how Christians are going to believe that these laws, Donald Trump's a Christian. He's chosen by God. Jews and Christians together as one, right? They're the chosen people. We're not the chosen people. People don't understand the sacrifice of Jesus Christ and who the chosen people actually are after that sacrifice was made, that it's followers of Jesus Christ who are God's chosen people. It's very clear in Scripture, but of course, we continue to have these debates where people you'll see in the comment section will tell me that I'm wrong about this. They'll say that it's the people over there on that specific piece of land, that nothing changed during the Balfour Declaration, where the land was literally hijacked and now is owned by the Rothschilds and the Federal Reserve. And then they go, no, but it specifically mentions these pieces of land that are specifically there. Well, how do you even know those are the specific places? You've only been told that they are. Some people believe that those places aren't actually where they tell you that they are. And in fact, when the specific group of people are supposed to go back to that land, well, what do you think? You just have to put on a certain little hat and then you're a part of that family or part of that tribe that goes back there? Do any churches teach about the book of Revelation? Do any of them teach about the tribes? Well, no, of course not. What do all the churches do? They get you to support and back Donald Trump, telling you that he's chosen by God, telling you that he's one with God, showing you all this Christian propaganda that ties in with Donald Trump. And they will be duped into the Noahide laws because they will believe that they are being protected, that this is about bringing Christianity to the forefront because America's a Christian nation. They don't even realize it's not even worshiping the same God, and they are idol worshiping. And the Noahide laws are for the synagogue of Satan. So all these laws are being set up so that if you don't worship the same God that they worship, that you're going to be beheaded, like the Bible talks about. So Donald Trump going out there and talking about how people are going to lose their religion if there's tax hikes, they won't even have time to pray. It's very interesting. All of this stuff, again, spiritually, we see this constantly in our faces with Donald Trump and Christians. And they don't realize how they're being lured in and they're being duped. And he could even mock you to his face. Not that dressing as the Pope is a mockery to any real Christian, because we know what the Pope actually is. Pope doesn't represent Christianity in any way, shape, or form. Only Jesus Christ represents those who are followers of Christ. Followers of Christ should not care at all about the Pope and who is the Pope. It's a man on earth who obviously is involved with bringing in the New World Order, which is exactly why Donald Trump was depicting himself as the Pope holding up one finger, because he is the one currently bringing in the New World Order, the One World Order. And every single thing that he's done since he's been in power has proven those things, like I mentioned earlier. AI governance infrastructure. That is the model of the New World Order. That's how it runs. That's how the governments connect, through artificial intelligence. It's the Tower of Babel rebuilt. That's what they've been trying to do since God scattered the lands and the people of the lands of the earth. He scattered the nations. God did. They've been trying to reconnect them. Well, how would they reconnect if they're all the way over there and you can't even get over there? Are you going to get on a plane and then you're going to get run by, you're going to be under the control of Putin? Well, when everything is digital and everything's online, right? Like they tell you can connect with somebody in China. You can connect with somebody in Timbuktu, right? Because the one world government runs through artificial intelligence. Who's bringing it in? Who's bringing it in? The UN wants it. World Economic Forum wants it. Day one, Donald Trump says $500 billion AI infrastructure. And in fact, we're going to build its own power grid so it can never go offline while we're putting up these Starlinks around you. And guess what? In the meantime, we're going to work on getting rid of the cell phone because it's going to be you who's connected to the Starlink and connected to this one world government infrastructure and the Internet of Bodies. But most of these people don't understand how it works. It's too hard for them to understand how it works. And most of them would rather believe the easier narrative, which is, Donald Trump was chosen by God. Those weren't false flags. Those weren't psyops that they created. They were real. And I'm going to put my trust in Donald Trump, even though the Bible tells me not to put my trust in man. It's coming faster than we've ever possibly imagined, at least in my opinion. I didn't think it would be coming in this quick, just 3 months into Donald Trump being in office, but it is coming in fast. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you, as always, and your families.